Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. I was wiping down the kitchen counter when Martha walked in, heels still on, jacket half slipped off her shoulder like she was posing for someone who wasn't me. It was a Thursday night, late, and I'd just finished reheating dinner. She didn't say hello. She never did anymore. She tossed her bag onto the chair and said, "I'm going on a trip this weekend." I looked up. "What trip?" She was already scrolling her phone. "A quick getaway. Nicole found a resort with a discount. I need a break." We had bills due the next week. Rent, car payment, the usual things couples were supposed to talk about. "We can't afford a trip right now," I said. Martha sighed loudly, like my sentence was ruining her evening. Before I could continue, her phone buzzed. She answered without checking the caller ID and hit speaker by accident. Nicole's voice filled the room. "Tell him you're coming no matter what." Nicole laughed. Martha didn't correct her. She didn't take the phone off speaker. Instead, she stared right at me, jaw tight, eyes full of that familiar impatience. "Damian," she said, "don't start. I'm going." "We didn't talk about this," I said quietly. "You can't just decide?" And then she dropped the sentence that started everything. "Don't like it? Then divorce me." She said it clear, sharp, and loud enough that Nicole cackled through the phone. Martha didn't even flinch. She just walked to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, took a sip, and muttered, "I'm tired of explaining myself." I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't tell her how disrespectful she sounded or how humiliating it felt to have her friend laughing in the background. I just stood there, staring at a woman who didn't care if her own husband stayed or left. Something in me shifted. Not anger, not heartbreak, just a cold, steady understanding. I set the towel down. "All right," I said. "Nothing more." Martha didn't notice the change in my voice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Either way, the door she thought was locked finally opened in my head. And for the first time, I considered walking through it. The next morning, Martha acted like nothing had happened. She came into the kitchen in her robe, hair pinned up, humming while scrolling her messages. She poured coffee without looking at me. I waited until she took her first sip. "Martha," I said, "about what you said last night." She didn't look up. "Damian, please, don't make this a thing. You told me to divorce you." She rolled her eyes so hard I heard her lashes scrape. "You're being sensitive. It was a joke." "You said it on speaker," while Nicole laughed. "That's because you were acting difficult," she snapped. "I work all week, and when I want one weekend away, you turn it into a crisis. Honestly, I'm exhausted." She walked past me, brushing my shoulder like I was in her way. This wasn't new. This was the pattern. Martha said whatever she wanted. I was expected to absorb it. If I pushed back even calmly, she labeled it an overreaction. If I disagreed, she called it negativity. If I asked for a conversation, she claimed I was starting drama. I no longer argued. I just watched. She left for work 30 minutes later. The door closed, and I finally exhaled. I headed to my job, kept my head down, and around lunch, I texted my friend Henry. "Coffee later? Need a neutral brain." He replied instantly, "Meet you at 5. Henry had known me since college. He'd seen me with Martha at her best and at her worst. When we sat down in the corner booth at the cafe, he didn't even start with small talk. "What happened?" he asked. I told him the whole thing. The speakerphone, the laughter, the sentence. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he tapped his finger against his cup and asked one question. Calm, simple, sharp. "If anyone else talked to you like that, would you stay in the room?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because we both knew the truth. That was the moment my thinking stopped being emotional and started being practical. Martha came home late that night, tossing her keys on the table like she was done pretending for the day. She didn't ask about my day. She didn't mention the conversation that morning. She just walked straight to the bedroom and began pulling clothes from the closet. "You're packing already?" I asked from the doorway. She didn't turn. "Nicole booked the rooms. We leave tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow?" I stepped inside. "We didn't discuss—" She spun around fast, both hands on her hips. "Damian, I'm not asking for permission. It's a weekend. I need it. You'll survive." "I never said you couldn't go," I replied. "I said we needed to talk about it." "And I said I'm tired," she shot back. "Of this, of you questioning everything, of feeling like I'm walking on eggshells because you're in one of your moods." I stared at her, calm, controlled. I wasn't in a mood. I was asking a question. She grabbed a dress, tossed it into her suitcase, and said the same line again. This time slower, colder, making sure I heard every word. If this life doesn't fit you, Damian, nobody's trapping you. Divorce me if you want. She didn't shout it. She didn't smirk. She just said it like a rule she expected me to follow. I nodded once. All right. She paused at that. Not long enough to understand, just long enough to decide she didn't want to understand. By midnight, she was asleep. Suitcase zipped, phone still buzzing with notifications from Nicole. I sat in the living room with the lamp on, staring at the blank page of a notebook. Not journaling, planning. I pulled out our joint. Account statements, the lease agreement, the insurance papers she always told me she'd handle later. I made a list of what belonged to whom, what I paid, what she controlled, what would change. Then I opened my laptop and created a brand new bank account, a separate one. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about surviving a marriage. I was thinking about leaving one, not out of spite, not out of anger, but because Martha had finally told me, twice, exactly what she wanted me to do. So I started preparing to grant her wish. Martha left early the next morning, dressed like someone heading to an award show instead of a weekend retreat. She grabbed her suitcase and said, "Try not to fall apart while I'm gone." Then she rolled her bag out the door without waiting for a reply. The apartment went quiet. Not the tense quiet we lived in. This one felt open. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle. Then I got to work. First, I moved my direct deposit into the private account I'd opened the night before. I didn't drain the joint account. I wasn't planning to play dirty. I just removed myself from the financial leash Martha liked to yank. By noon, I was sitting in the office of Lena Hayes, a family attorney recommended by someone at work. She shook my hand firmly. "What brings you in, Damian?" I told her everything. Not the dramatized version, just facts. The comments, the dismissiveness, the trip, the lack of partnership. She listened without judgment, only stopping to ask clarifying questions. When I finished, she folded her hands. "You're not required to decide today. My job is to give you options." She laid them out cleanly. How separation worked, what documents I should copy, how assets were split, how to protect myself financially, what a divorce filing looked like, how long the process usually took. "Most people come in angry," she said. "You're calm. That usually means the decision is already made, even if you haven't admitted it to yourself yet." I didn't argue. Back home, Martha's texts started coming in. Not loving ones, pictures, a pool chair, a cocktail with a sparkler, a blurry group photo. Her smile looked wide, but her body language was distant from everyone around her. I replied once, "Glad you arrived safely." She didn't respond. I spent the rest of the night gathering documents, organizing files, and drafting a separation packet Lena told me to prepare. Not final divorce papers yet, just the first step. And once it was printed and placed neatly in a folder on the table, all I had to do was wait for Martha to come home. Martha came back Sunday evening, dragging her suitcase like someone returning from a victory lap. She didn't knock, didn't call, just unlocked the door and stepped inside with a loud, satisfied sigh. "Damian," she called out, "you won't believe the weekend I had." Her voice carried that smug edge she used whenever she thought she'd won a conversation we never actually had. I was sitting on the couch, calm, hands folded, waiting. The separation folder sat neatly on the coffee table in front of me. She rounded the corner with a grin that looked glued in place. "Nicole and I met so many interesting people. The resort was amazing. Honestly, it reminded me I need more breaks. I give too much, you know." She finally noticed the folder. The smirk snapped off her face like someone cut a wire. "What's that?" "A separation packet," I said. "First step of the process you told me to start." She blinked fast, once, twice, like she was making sure she heard correctly. "Damian, stop. You're joking." "No." She stared at me, then at the folder, then back at me. "You seriously did this? Because I went on a trip?" I kept my voice steady. "Because you told me, twice, to divorce you if I didn't like how you lived. So I prepared the first step." Martha laughed once, sharp and fake. "Oh my God, you're being ridiculous. I was venting. Couples argue. It's normal." "Normal couples try to fix things," I said. "You tell me to leave." She crossed her arms. "So this is punishment?" "No, this is clarity." Her breathing changed, shallow, uneven. Damian, come on. Don't throw away a marriage over one sentence. A sentence you meant, I replied, and not the first time you said it. She stepped closer, searching my face for hesitation. There wasn't any. You're serious, she whispered. Yes. The apartment went silent. Martha looked at the folder like it might explode if she touched it. Damian, she said softly, you're making a mistake. But for the first time since I'd known her, she didn't sound confident. She sounded scared, and she had every reason to be. Martha didn't sit. She hovered near the table, arms crossed tight, eyes jumping between me and the separation packet like she was choosing which one to fight first. Look, she said, voice shaking now. I was stressed. Work has been insane. Nicole pushes me to live a little. I shouldn't have said what I said. Can we just rewind? No, I replied. We can't. She flinched, then paced a small circle, rubbing her forehead like trying to restart her thoughts. Damian, you're blowing this up. I went on a weekend trip. That's all. Who was on the trip, Martha? She stopped walking. Her eyes flickered, just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. Don't do that, she said. Don't twist things. Answer the question. Her throat moved. It was me, Nicole, and a coworker. That's it. What coworker? Her silence stretched. Finally, she whispered, Julian. I nodded slowly. The guy from your department. It wasn't like that, she said quickly. Too quickly. He happened to be there. We talked. That's all. You didn't mention him. Because it wasn't important. Then why hide it? She opened her mouth and closed it again. Then her voice cracked. Because you get insecure. You make everything heavy. Julian listens. He doesn't make me feel judged. There it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for months. Not physical betrayal, but emotional distance, quiet messages, the slow erosion of loyalty. I stayed quiet. Martha kept talking, words spilling fast. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't. I just needed someone who understood how hard everything has been. I didn't do anything wrong. You brought another man into our marriage, I said. You don't need to sleep with someone to step out. She sank into the chair across from me, hands trembling. Not from guilt. Martha hated losing control, and she was losing all of it at once. You don't get it, she whispered. I was tired. I needed a break from feeling like the bad guy. You became the bad guy when you stopped caring, I answered calmly. She looked up at me, eyes wide, mascara smudged at the edges. Damian, please. I can fix this. But we both knew she hadn't tried to fix anything in a long time. And now the truth was sitting right between us, plain and undeniable. Martha's breathing had gone uneven, like every second was tightening around her. She wiped her eyes fast, almost angrily, and pushed her hair back as if tidying herself would somehow steady the situation. Damian, she said, voice breaking but still trying to sound firm. We're married. People go through rough patches. You don't throw away 6 years because of a bad weekend. I slid the separation packet toward her. This isn't about one weekend. It's about everything that came before it. She looked at the papers as if they were written in another language. You already filled out your part, she whispered. I did. When? She asked, though she already knew. While you were gone. She pressed a hand to her forehead. You talked to someone, didn't you? A lawyer? Yes, I said, calm. Her name is Lena Hayes. The calmness unnerved her. Martha wasn't used to a version of me she couldn't provoke, manipulate, or redirect. Damian, I messed up, she said quietly. I know that. I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have gone on that trip with Julian there. I was stupid. But divorce? Really? I kept my voice level. You told me to divorce you twice. You made it clear you didn't care if I stayed. You meant it then. I mean it now. She shook her head. No, I was overwhelmed. I thought you'd argue. Not this. Her hand trembled as she flipped through the pages. You're not fighting me. You're not yelling. You're just done. I am. Martha swallowed hard. If I sign this, where do I go? What do I tell people? What happens to everything we built? You'll take the guest room furniture, I said. I'll keep the apartment. You can take your savings untouched. I'm not trying to ruin you, Martha. I just want a clean break. Her lip quivered, fear swallowing the last of her pride. She reached for the pen. Her hand shook as she pressed it to the signature line. Damian, she whispered, please stop me. I didn't. She signed. 2 days later, she packed her belongings and walked out quietly. No yelling, no performance, no last jab. Just a woman realizing too late that she had gambled her marriage away on pride and lost. The apartment felt different after Martha left. Not empty, just honest. The rooms didn't feel like places I had to tiptoe through. For the first time in years, the silence didn't sit on my shoulders. It sat beside me. A week passed, then 2. Martha sent a few messages in the beginning, long ones full of explanations, half apologies, and emotional detours that didn't lead anywhere. I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because the conversations she wanted had ended long before she realized they were happening. Through a mutual acquaintance, I heard pieces of her fallout. Julian kept his distance once the divorce became real. Nicole blamed her for dramatic choices. Her department whispered about the trip she'd bragged about too loudly. She moved into a smaller place across town and told people she was focusing on healing, though everyone knew she hadn't expected me to actually leave. Divorce processing was smoother than I expected. Lena handled the filings, and I signed what I needed to sign. Quiet, straightforward, controlled. Martha signed her copies without arguing. By then, she didn't have the energy to fight. Pride was the rope she had pulled on until it finally snapped. One Friday evening, a month after she moved out, Nicole called. I almost didn't answer. When I did, she didn't waste time pretending it was a casual check-in. She told me the truth about the trip. Martha and Julian hadn't just talked. They had slept together. Nicole said it like it was obvious, like something that had been bound to happen. Maybe to her, it was. To me, it wasn't a shock. It was confirmation. Not loud, not painful, just clear. The last piece falling into place exactly where I expected it to. I thanked her, ended the call, and stood there for a moment in the quiet. No anger, no urge to confront, no need for closure. I already had it. When I moved to the kitchen counter, the same spot where Martha once told me, "Don't like it? Then divorce me." The memory didn't sting. It made sense. I ran my hand across the surface, the moment replayed in my head, clear now, stripped of any weight it once had. She thought that sentence made her untouchable. She thought I'd argue, beg, bend, fold the way I always had. But something inside me had clicked into place. There was nothing left to question. She told me to divorce her. So I did. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the door had closed on the past, not on a person, on the version of myself who accepted less than respect. The silence waiting inside wasn't emptiness. It was freedom. Thank you for watching.